Okay, so good morning everyone. So in today's session, we'll continue with the operators which we learned about. So until now, what we have covered, sorry, until now what we have covered is only two type of operators. So the first type of operator which we covered was arithmetic operators, and the next type of operator is assignment operators. So for these two operators, we have completed. Now, what we understood from these two operators is using these operators, basically we can do is any kind of arithmetic operations which involves like plus, minus, subtraction, division, and multiplication. And similarly, using these assignment operators, we can use these operators to perform some kind of increments, decrements, or division or multiplication operators when we have a value like this. Now, if we move forward from this two type of operators, there is one more additional type of operator which is called as comparison operator. So what does comparison operator mean? So comparison operator means is these operators which will help us to compare between two variables at a time, right? So it's as easy as it is. So within comparison operators, what we have is equal to sign, then not equal to sign, then greater than sign, then less than sign, then greater than equal to, and lastly it's less than equal to sign. So looking at these operators itself, it's pretty much self-explanatory to understand like what kind of operators these are. So if we take the first operator, which is equal to, and if we try to see what is an example for it. So what it says is, let's say we have two variables called as a equal to 5 and then b equal to 5. And what we say is a equal to b. So if a is equal to b, that means the value of a, is it equal to b? So it is equal because a is also 5 and b is also 5. So internally, what the output would be true. So that's what it is. And if these values are not equal, then the output internally would be false. So these comparison operators would give us output either like in two format. The first one is either it is going to be true, and if it's not true, then the answer is always going to be false. So if we say like one more example, like a is 5 and b is 7, and if we say a equal to b, what does this help us give us is a is not equal to b, right? Because a is 5 and b is 7. So answer is basically false. So internally, using this comparison operator equal to, what we understand is it's false. Similarly, if you move to next operator, which is not equal to. So not equal to operator, as it says, is also used for comparison. So how can we understand it is, let's say we have two variables where a is 5 and then b is 10. And if we say a is not equal to b, that means it is true, right? Because a is not equal to b. And if we take one more example where we say a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 5, and if we do a is not equal to b, so what is its internal output? Internal output is a is not equal to b, but here a and b value is 5. That means it is false. So looking at these two operators, what we understand is these two are acting the other way. Like they are like opposites of each other. Here, when we took A is equal to B, well, they were like equal, we were saying true, but not equal to, when we have the same values, it will give us the false. So ideally, they are acting like in opposition, like they are opposites of each other, but it's as easy to understand as looking at the operator which we have. So in normal English language, if we say like I have A whose value is 5 and value for B is 10. So if I say A is not equal to B, so is A not equal to B? So A's value and B's value are not equal, which is true. Whereas for the next one, A and B both are 5. Now what we say is A is not equal to B, which indicates they're equal. So that's why we are saying it's false. So that's what internally Python will let us know its output either in true or false format. And the next one is next all operators are also like easy to understand, like greater than. So example is, let's say same one, A is equal to 5 and B equal to 10. If we say A is greater than B, output is false, right? Because 5 is less than 10. So that means it's false. And the other way, like if A is 10 and B is 5, and if we say A is greater than B, then we say it is true because value of A is greater than B. So this is as easy as it is. And the next operator is also same, which is less than. And I think we don't even need to go into example because it's the opposite of greater than and less than. Also, if we go in detail now for, let's make a note here, or let's quickly do one example here. Here we are saying is A equal to 5 and B equal to 10. And if we say A is less than B, so my output is true. So that we have it in our notes. Now the last two operators are also easy, which is nothing but greater than equal to and less than equal to. So operator greater than equal to. Now here what we are saying is, let's say I have example A equal to 5 and B is also equal to 5. So both these variables are 5. And if we say A is greater than equal to B, this is true because A is not greater than B, but it is equal to B. So this is satisfying that condition. That's why we are saying it's true. And the last operator is less than equal to. For less than equal to also, it will imply here same, like A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 5. Both are 5. And if we say A is less than equal to B, its output is going to be true because A is not less than B, but it is equal to. So it's satisfying this condition. So that's why internally Python will let us know like it's a true. So looking at these operators, comparison as well as previous operators, they're like pretty straightforward and easy to understand, like nothing complex in its programming or something. So that completes comparison operators. Now what remains is the next set of operators which are called as mm, logical operators. And these are the last type of operators. So logical operators, it's point number 4. Okay. So basically, logical operators are operators provided by Python, which will help us perform comparison of two variables and give us the output. Now, this similar kind of logic or like similar kind of comparison operators we have learned over here, like using these operators of equal to, not equal to, and all these signs. Look at these are like signs of equal to, less than, or equal to, and not equal to. But for logical operators, it's more into like our computer language or like a basic English language, but it just has this three kind of operators. So one of the operator is called as and, the next one is called as or, and the next one is called as not. So we all have is three type of logical operators, and in order to understand what these operators are, these are easy to know. So if we go into an example now here for operator and, so operator and is used for comparison or like taking two variables as an input first. Let's say I have a equal to 5 and b equal to 5, and again I have like two more variables like c equal to 5 and d equal to 10. Or let's take a and b as 5 and okay. So we have is like four variables a, b, c, d. A and b value is 5 and c and d value is 10. Now we can use operator and to compare these four values, and we can use like two values also, but it will be easy for us to understand. Let's say a equal to b and c equal to d. So here what we have mentioned is a equal to b. So what is the output of a equals b? Since a and b are equal, it is going to be true for this condition. And on the right hand side of this and keyword, we have c is equal to d. Here also c and d are equal. That means 10. So internally, how we are seeing this is on the left hand side, it is true, and on the right hand side, it is true. So left hand side of and keyword is true, and right hand side of and keyword is true. So if there are like two trues within an and, so that means your output is going to be true. So internally, using these two conditions, this and keyword has evaluated the output as true. Now, the only one situation where it is going to be true always is when it has both the conditions are true. If any one condition is false within these two conditions, then the output will be always false. So it's basically like an logical operation where like true is acting like a 1 and false is acting like a 0, and is acting like a multiplication. So it's like a equal to b means 1, that means true, and c equal to d means also 1 because it is true. Since these two are true, we are saying it's 1 and 1, and we multiply 1 into 1 is 1, so output is true. But in either case, if let's say c equal to d is false, so how our internal logic over here will be 1 into 0. So multiplying 1 with 0 is going to give us 0, which means output is false. So this was our example 1. We can have one example 2 for false condition. So for false condition, what we can say is a is 5, b is 5, c is again 10, and d is 15. And if we use the similar check for us, we can see how internally the output is going to be. A equal to B means 5 equal to 5, which is true, and C equal to D. Now here C is not equal to D, so that's why we are saying is false. So true and false, if you multiply, output is 0, that means it is false. So that's how this AND operator works. Now looking at this, what we understand is AND operator is used to evaluate conditions, which can be two or more conditions, right? So two operators, like two conditions, are evaluated using an AND keyword using them. Similarly, we can use OR operator also, which is the next one. So instead of AND, what OR will do is it is going to be either kind of operation, like either or operation. So let's take similar example for us to understand. So if we say A equal to 5 and B equal to 5, again C equal to 10 and D equal to 10. And if we write A equal to B or C equal to D. So what is the output here? A is equal to B, right? So it is true. Or C equal to D, this is also true. So since both of the conditions are true and we are using an OR keyword in between them, so it's like either one of that condition has to be true to get the output as true. And if either one of that condition is also false and the other condition is true, then also it's going to be always true. The only way where the output is going to be false is when both of these conditions are false. So if we take second example, we say A equal to 5, B equal to 10, C equal to 5, and D equal to 10. Now if we do A equal to B or C equal to D, here we see is A is not equal to B because 5 is not equal to 10. So this becomes false, or D is 10 and C is 5. So here also these two are not equal. So the condition evaluates to be false. So false, or and false. So it's like both of these operators are false. So or will give us is false. So looking at these both operators, and as well as or, what we understand is and is acting like a multiplication internally and or is acting like an addition, and true and false are like 1 and 0. So here we say like false is 0 plus 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. So output is false. If we have is true, which is 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1 is positive number, which is greater than 0. That means it is true. So it's like a binary add operation, and these are like binary multiplication operation. And if we have one more example where we have is true or false. So what does that indicate is also true is 1 and false is 0. So if we add a true plus false, output is 1. That means it is true. So that way these operators work. And why these operators are used is they're used to evaluate conditions uh, which we give. And the conditions are nothing but these conditions which we gave. And these conditions can be anything based on like whatever we have learned until now, like either assignment operators or like comparison operators, or even logical operator can also come here, which can be cascading or multiplication thing. And the last operator is a straightforward, which is called as not. So what does not operator say? So not operator is basically used to check for two variables. Now let's say we have A is 5 and B is 10, then C is 10 and D is 15. So these are our like four variables. And what we'll use is we can use our previous condition itself here. So how this previous condition was giving is false or false, and the output was false, right? So the condition here was giving us false because A is not equal to B. That's why we have is false. And C is not equal to D. That's why we have is false. So whatever the output is, it's false or false. And what's the final output? Final output is false. Now the not operator is like if we apply a not operator on top of this condition like this, where this not operator is applied on this condition, and it's like a regular maths, like where we are trying to solve is the internal bracket. And in this internal bracket, we have evaluated this condition internally is this step one, false or false. And this is how our final output would be for internal calculation. And lastly, not is going to flip your output from true to false or from false to true. Now here, since we have is false, not is like it will reverse it. So what is the opposite of false? It's going to be true. And just in case if the internal operation is giving us true and we are applying a not on it, so the output is going to be the opposite of true, which is the false. So here our output is false. So that's how this not operator works, where it tries to flip your output from true to false or the other way, like from false to true. And how we need to apply is we just need to apply that not on a condition, and that condition can be anything which we learned about in our previous two operators. So that covers all these three type of logical operators as well as our comparison operators. Then we have covered is assignment operators and the arithmetic operators. And before these operators, what we covered was like sets, frozen sets, dictionaries, which was more into like data structures. Now, the only one
Okay.
of the core thing, sorry, go ahead.
So there's no any NAND nor operator over here, no existing.
Yeah, correct. So there is no like NAND, like some advanced operators, as you're saying, like NAND, NOR, like those kind of operators we don't have because we can create those operators, like we can create that kind of functionality of NAND using NOT plus and together. So we can do it, but there's no like a straightforward operator called as NAND or like NOR operator where we can directly straightforward
Okay.
apply. In order to get that kind of functionality, we can use these three core operators and create that formula for a NAND or NOR.
Okay.
So now only one of the core important part for Python's theoretical concept remaining is something called as loops and functions. So first we'll go into loops in Python. Let me go to the next page. So the second last topic for us is loops in Python. So what are basically loops? So loops are nothing but like an iteration mechanism for provided by Python, which can help us to do a certain task n number of times. And that task will like reiterate again and again, like a for loop or like any kind of loops. So it's like we have a set of operations, like we want to perform addition of two numbers consecutively, like for n number of times. And that value of a variable is incrementing or decrementing based on a given condition which we have. Now we can perform those kind of iterative operations using loops in Python. And these loops are pretty much straightforward and easy to understand. And there are only three type of loops provided in Python. So the first type of loop involves is called as if else loop. The next type of loop is called as while loop, and the last one is called as for loop. So we have is just three core loops provided by Python. Now, if we go into the loop of if else, how its syntax is, let's give a bullet point here.
Sir, I have sent you the file. You can take that data from there also
Yeah, I think I saw it.
instead
Yeah,
of typing, so the time will be saved. That's why.
yeah, like I think we can do it in our next session, but yeah, we
Okay,
can just quickly do it here only.
fine.
So this is loop called as if else loop. Okay, so it's these bullets are not working fine here. Okay, so the first loop is called as if else loop, and how its syntax is. So its syntax is like if followed by a, so if is a keyword which is the initial keyword followed by a condition. Now this condition is user defined condition, right? So here we have to provide our condition followed by a colon, and if that condition is true, what happens is the list of statements which we have will be executed. So statement 1 can be executed, then statement 2 can be executed as it is. Like, so we can write like 100 statement or n number of statements and those will be executed. So that's the part of, okay. So that's how this if loop works. So I'll just reiterate again that if else loop implementation syntax is we need to write this keyword called as if followed by a condition, and this condition can be our given condition followed by this colon, and after colon what we are saying is if this condition is true, and if this condition is true, what will happen is internally return statements like 1 2 3 4 whatever it is, they will be executed. And if the condition over here is false, our else statements will be executed. So that is how this if else loop works. So this is like a pretty straightforward, like if we have is if, then given a condition, if it is true, then I will execute statement 1 and 2. But if the condition is false, my control would directly jump to else, and within this else, whatever statements I have, which is statement 3 and 4, these will be executed. So that is how this if else looping mechanism works. So we can have a quick example now how this if else works in like a real programming. So to understand our programs, what we can do is, let's say I'll take two variables a equal to 5 and b equal to 5. So I have is two variables a and b, their values are 5. I am saying if a equal to b, which is my condition followed by colon, what I need to tell is print values are equal. But if my A and B are not equal, what I need to do is else followed by colon. I should say print values are not equal. So it's like as is it is. Like we have a given condition and we need to evaluate. If the condition is true, I will execute this statement, which is print. Else, my next statement would be executed if my values are not equal. So this is how our if else looping will work. Now, if we go much one more level down in this loop called as if else, there is an advanced thing called as cascade if else loops. So that indicates is we can have multiple if loops written, and if those multiple if conditions are false, then by default last else statement would be executed. Because what we are seeing here is just single if, and if this condition is false, we are directly jumping to else. But there might be a scenario where we can have multiple conditions. Now those multiple conditions can be anything, and we want to evaluate those list of conditions first, and if all those conditions are fail, then we need to execute is else. So the syntax for that cascaded or like multiple if else loop is if I will write my condition, and if my condition is true, I will execute a statement 1. But if my condition is false, what should happen is I should write ELIF, that is else if. So in a regular English, what we say is if my condition is false, I'll do else if. So in Python, else if is shortened to ELIF. Only the first two characters are taken. So elif condition 2. If a condition here is 1, and if my second condition is this. Now, if my first condition is false, I will jump here to my condition 2, and I'll check if my condition 2 is true or false. And if it is true, my this statement 2 is executed. But if it is false, I'll again write elif, which is another condition, condition 3, and my statement 3 is executed. So if all these three conditions are false, what happens is by default, my else loop would be executed, which is statement 4. So if you look at this, it's like a switch kind of statement, or it's like a multiple if statements followed by a last else, where I'm saying is if my first condition is false, I will jump here. If my second condition is false, I will jump here. And if my condition 3 is also false, then by default my else will be executed and its statement 4 is executed. But the other way is if my condition 1 is true and if my statement 1 is executed, then the bottom conditions, the ones which are highlighted at the bottom, will not be executed at all. Same thing goes for condition 2. Let's say I have condition 1 and it is false, and we jump to condition 2. Now my condition 2 is true. Now since condition 2 is true, my statement 2 will be executed, and the remaining list of conditions, including the else, will not be executed. So that's how it works. So let's take a quick example which will help us understand like how this if else looping works now. So we can take is a equal to 5, then b equal to 10, and then c equal to 10. So we have is three variables, and let's try to use multiple if loops. So I can say if a equal to b, I need to do is print a is equal to b. else if b equal to c, what I will do is print b is equal to c. And lastly, if either of these two conditions are not satisfying, or like we can have one more condition called as else if a equal to c. That means the next two variables. So what I will do is print a is equal to c. And lastly, we can say is if either of these are not executed, we can say is else print all conditions are false. So that will help us understand like all of our conditions are false. So now looking at this, what we see is A is 5, B is 10, and C is 10. When we come here at the first line, A is equal to B, no, right? Because A and B are not equal. So this condition is false. So we are going to jump on the next condition. Now next condition is B is equal to C. So now B and C are 10. That means they're equal. So since they're equal, this statement is executed. That is B is equal to C, and our whole program is completed. So in this case, these next set of conditions are not evaluated at all because this one condition has satisfied and this statement is executed. So that's how this multiple if else will work. Now I think this video, like the Zoom will get drop off in like within a minute. So if it gets
Yeah,
dropped,
sir. I have sent it the new link on your WhatsApp account. Okay,
okay,
everyone, guys. So
okay,
you can
yeah,
stop this recording. Yeah,
yeah, I'll stop this and we'll join that.
join by the next new link.
Yep,
I have sent it you.
yep,
Okay. Thank you.
okay. Thanks.